The biggest decision facing our new Prime Minister is when to call a general election. With a likely majority of just 2 or 3, including the flaky Ulster Unionists, and having made a whole range of new enemies amongst his Tory colleagues by sacking half the cabinet, Johnson has no option but to go to the people to try to get a bigger majority. But it will be a risky strategy. If he holds the election before we leave the EU, the Brexit Party are likely to steal a fair number of their votes, meaning the Tories are unlikely to get a majority. If he waits until after we've left the EU, it might not happen at all. Johnson's only hope could be to negotiate a brand new deal with the EU and then go to the country. But why would EU leaders give him that? They clearly don't like him, and they can do the maths just like us. The next few months are likely to be very rocky, and Boris Johnson's time as PM could be one of the shortest in history.
I think you're overlooking a big factor, which is that it is in the interests of the EU, just as it is in the interests of the UK, that we get some sort of deal across the line. So I think, actually, what would be quite fun is if we all made our predictions as what's going to happen, seal the results in an envelope and open it maybe in 6 months' time. And nothing we have predicted would have happened because the things are so unpredictable. I think that Plan A is what he said on the steps of Downing Street, which is he will do his utmost to try and get a deal through, which I think he has a chance of putting lipstick on the pig and bringing home the bacon, because the danger he faces from, as you point out, those 17 people he sacked, plus the 40 or so who voted against no deal, is far greater than the danger he faces from the Brexit Party or for the Eurosceptics on his own side. So I think there's going to be a huge will on both sides of the channel for him to get the deal through. And if he does get the deal through, I think you're right, he'll have to go to the country. He needs a bigger majority. He doesn't have a majority in the Commons.
If he goes to the country having got a deal through, he'll win.
Yeah, absolutely. But
if he goes to the country with having got no deal, he won't.
But I disagree
and
with
that's the problem.
See, I used to think that too, but I've just been thinking about it the last few days. If he starts campaigning in the next couple of weeks, right, so he's campaigning on a Brexit, the campaign will be to get us out of the EU. That will have a democratic legitimacy, and it will be led by a man who's absolutely, keen to do this. And I think...
So does he do a deal with Farage before or after?
But he wouldn't have to, because if he's campaigning on Brexit before the 31st, he's got half a chance. I didn't believe it, but the more I think about it, it's true. He will have momentum.
So you think he might call an election immediately?
I think it would be very wise of him to call an election in the next 28 days, because...
What?
Yes, because...
Cancel your holiday.
Brave, it would be... It's a risky strategy, but he neutralises the Brexit Party because he's campaigning for Brexit.
I can't see that.
But he's campaigning for Brexit.
Country's not ready. The nation would not want his best chance. Well, interestingly, you talk about Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party. Let's see what Mr Farage has to say about this possibility.
The Conservative Party historically find it very difficult to work with any other political party. Now, there are some saying, look at the logic. Donald Trump is one of them. Some say, look at the Peterborough by-election, where the Brexit Party and Conservatives between them get more than 50% of the vote, but Labour win the seat with 31% of the vote. So there are some arguments out there that say a pact might work, but at the moment, it's not easy to see.
To sum up, so we get Rachel involved, that's clearly the cabinet that he's put together is effectively a war cabinet. It's an election cabinet. It's absolutely life and soul of the Conservative Party and Boris's message. If to use your lovely expression, if he puts lipstick on the pig and brings home the bacon or whatever it was, and then he goes to the poll, and remember he's got Dominic Cummings behind, sort of this mastermind, this Svengali figure. By God, I reckon he's got a hell of a chance at an election.
But he's already said the withdrawal agreement's dead, so he can't put lipstick on the pig. He's got to get another one.
So I do think... Remember, Dominic Cummings hates Farage and that part of the Brexit campaign.
But he's an electioneering
I do think that he has a legitimacy problem. I mean, it's already a hung parliament, so the Conservatives had that anyway. But going forward, this is a man who is now Prime Minister because, you know, 97,000 people, 71% of them male, 97% of them white, voted for him. Now, I know that's the system that we're in. Let me finish. I know that's the system that we're in, but it does create a legitimacy problem. And it's, I have to say, it's very strange sitting here listening to you all greet Boris Johnson as Prime Minister in a sort of glorious manner, like it's some kind of Teletubby sepia
Hang on, don't
sunrise. I think I'm going to just speak up for the people who actually are very frightened by this.
How did the Labour leader get elected?
Let me finish, Carole. There are people in this country, the people who are vulnerable will feel frightened by this. Minority communities will feel frightened by his election. We're looking at a man who is manifestly ill-equipped, reckless, dangerous person, and a lot of people feel very uneasy
who did more for minorities in London than the previous
Minister.
mayor.
Exactly. And I think that for a lot of people in this country, he does have a legitimacy problem that he's going to have to resolve.
Let's get back to the election. I mean, if you look at the latest polls, 31% find Johnson favourable. Now, May was at 48% when she became Prime Minister, and she still didn't get an election. She held one and lost a majority.
The odds are still that he won't call one in 2019, according to the polls. It's 6-4 against.
Well, if he gets to the stage where what I don't know what happens is he gets to the stage where he can't get a deal from Brussels, and I don't think he will. And therefore, it's either we crash out.
None of us know.
And none of us know what happens then. What happens?
Depending what day you're watching this transmission. We're 90-something. We've got 90. It was definitely 90s. Whatever day you're watching this, we've got 90-something days to go. We won't know where we are for those 90 days. That's what's driving everything.
But even if there was an election, no party can be confident of a majority. Because, you know, we know a year ago the two main parties, the Tories and Labour, they were sharing, we're like 39%.
No, 80-something.
No, between them, each it was 39%
yes.
Total of 78 or 79%. That's totally changed now. They're 25% each. The Lib Dems are at 18% and the Greens are at 6%. So that no party is going to get a big majority.
It could be the only time in my lifetime when the first past the post system actually works against the Tories and the Labour Party. And actually works in favour of the rest.
I think the interesting thing will be whether, you know, there is actually a vote of no confidence. If he tries to ram no deal through Parliament, and that will be the test. Are there enough Conservatives?
You won't get it through Parliament.
Are there enough Conservatives who are willing to support a vote of no confidence at that point? Because they've had a few months to see just how reckless and how damaging Boris Johnson as Prime Minister really is.
Why? How can you say it's going to be reckless and damaging? He hasn't done anything yet. What he did do the other day was he set out... Well, let me finish because I let you finish. He set out his stall the other day and he said what he was going to do. And let's judge him on this. He said he was going to fix social care. He said he was going to fix schools. He said... Well,
I can say these words.
Give him a chance.
Theresa May said she was going to fix burning injustices. She spent 3 years not doing that.
The next thing you'll be saying...
These are just words, Carole.
Any minute now, we'll hear those 97,000 Conservatives didn't know what they were voting for.
Exactly.
That's what people will be saying.
That's what's so terrifying about it.
That's what they will definitely be saying.
Well, he'll have to be negotiating with Ursula von der Leyen. Can we just hear from her? Do we want to hear from her? How terrified she is of this reckless new Premier?
First of all, congratulations to Boris Johnson to be nominated as Prime Minister. And I'm looking forward to have a good working relation with him. There are many different and difficult issues to tackle together. We have challenging times ahead of us. I think it is very important to build up a strong and a good working relation because we have the duty to deliver something which is good for people in Europe and in the United Kingdom. So I'm looking forward to working with him.
I think, as I said, desperation, both sides, to get some deal through. Then we're going to see a Boris bounce and an economic bounce.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We're going to bounce on to other things.